Welcome to Wraparound the World, where we'll explore the incredible journey of wraparound from its origins to its global impact. Join us as we delve into our personal stories, meeting powerful individuals, families, and communities who have been transformed by this powerful approach.
Let's discover how Wraparound is shaping the future of care and support together. In this episode, we'll take a stroll down memory lane, discussing what inspired our lifelong work in Wraparound.
Are you ready for a wild ride?
Yes, absolutely. Ready to roll.
A wild ride through wraparound history.
Okay, let's make it happen.
We're going to take a few minutes to explore what some of the foundations and the stories we've heard. I'm sure there may be some truth to the story, and I'm sure there may be some myth. But let's take a minute to think about our humble beginnings in wraparound. Let's think about where things have come from, the birth of this ideology, this grassroots movement. Let's think about that and take a few minutes to talk about it.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I've always wanted to really kind of delve into that. When I started this work, actually it was done out of necessity. It was something that I was having some things happening with my own family, but as I started to get it formally or do it formally, I met some of our, you know, the grandfathers, some of the founders, and it was, kind of awe and inspiring. But to really understand and get into the history, it was very interesting to me, and I loved hearing the stories, and I really thought about it. And after even visiting, right, kind of some of those places, just thinking about what really happened. So I'm really excited to kind of
Let's
delve
unpack.
into that.
I
Yeah.
wonder what that. Let's unpack that journey. So let's start where maybe you can think of one of those first pioneer experiences, and or the first like. Could you share with me where that was, what it was like, and maybe some of the stories that they shared with you that just capture what you wanted to do.
Well, I one of the first experiences that I had, I think, is when I started the work, when I came where I am now, and I was trying to understand, kind of formally what this was happening for me, and we got Carl Dennis came to the area to um, help us or talk to us, right, about how the things that he'd done in the past, and just kind of see what was going kind of on here. And he was a keynote to our, I think it was our provider network banquet or some things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember kind of listening to some of the stories that he was talking about, some of the early things that he'd done, and just being super fascinated by it. And at the time, many years ago, um, he was talking about something going on with the school system, right? Or the schools. And what I got out of that was that it was, it felt like, some observations that, like, maybe that he was making from kind of being here in the work. And it was something that I was seeing, right? Because we were still, that was the one thing that we were working to try to include, right? So in other words, some systems can be siloed, and we had done a really good job at that point, and kind of getting everyone really around the table. um, but at that point, uh, the schools weren't kind of coming around. And so we were listening to and hearing about all of the kind of the stuff that he'd done. And I heard about Kaleidoscope and some of those things. But I just loved how kind of brought it back around to something, I'd say, tangible and like real
Mm-hmm.
for me, that I just kind of was able to hone in on and think. I was like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
That's what was happening, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, but I was like, yeah, I love that. And I just really, not for nothing, but the first thing I thought was, this man is a really big guy. He was so
Is he
tall.
really that tall?
He was to me. Now
I've
it could
never.
have just been the larger than life stories, or
Sure.
you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying. So
I can't wait to
when
meet him.
I see him again,
Yeah.
I don't know, but I just thought, God, like he's really a big guy, right? So I'm anxious to when I meet him again. I'm hoping to do that again soon,
Yes.
um, but that's what it was to me.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
that's one of the first things that come to mind for
Somebody
me.
walks in the room and fills the room, right? And then I remember being those things that we thought we were doing well in within the groups that were participating, right?
Exactly, exactly,
And
exactly,
even in that
exactly.
work, there were communities of which we were not connected to or integrated. Like we may collaborate well with them, we may like play nice.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so I could only there's many times where we're like, oh, why didn't we include developmental disabilities?
Right,
They
right.
have a plethora of services.
And to be, I don't say to be fair, but to be accurate, there were isolated time, and
Mm-hmm.
there were different
Mm-hmm.
times in
Mm-hmm.
which, we and there were. I mean, I don't want to do a whole thing, but like I think like different charter schools or some schools because they were run kind of differently,
Sure.
where as a maybe a team like we were all going there or doing, you know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right.
So,
Right.
but I'm saying kind of like system
Yeah.
wide. Do you know what
Yeah.
I mean? That we were hoping to make that different and better, and things are always evolving and getting better. So, to me, that's what I mean,
That's a
right?
cool
So,
story. Because
yeah,
you're
it
so what I
was.
if I hear you saying right, it was happening with like individual
Exactly,
families
exactly,
and
exactly,
people, but
exactly.
not necessarily
Right. We needed
flourishing.
we needed a way to ensure that it was, as a whole system,
Right.
ensuring that that was going on, and it did, and it was shortly after that we
Yeah.
were able to kind of, kind of fully recognize and continue to evolve,
Gotcha.
into one of the really good system we're having
So I was trying to, as you're thinking about stories, and I was first going to some like heavy hitters, and then I was like, maybe there's some maybe unmentioned names that really like, whoa,
now.
and so one of them I can think of. So when we were first hired to do this practice, first of all, I went into an interview that I was applying for something that different, and they're like, oh, you talked a lot about yourself in the story. You more than a normal professional interview.
That's weird.
And they said,
That's
yeah,
weird.
thanks, buddy. And they said, no, but with your lived experience, we've got this new innovative role. We're gonna bring you in. Anyways, brought me in. And at that time, fires were happening in San Diego. It was real bad
Mm.
fires. And so we weren't necessarily getting youth at that point, and we were just a startup program. Anyways, they gave us the 10 principles on paper, written in definition, and said, go. And we were like, what? Like, no referrals, right? No families to serve. And we started going to the water and working in the community. But then I remember finally getting sent to a training. And I went to a 3-day training in LA, like great state of Los Angeles. And in that training, there were two people. The name were Brad and Jerry Consulting. And they were like, they helped launch, support the statewide implementation through like a little EMQ project, which was
Oh,
California
sure,
Seed, right?
sure.
And so then they were a part of that, and then they helped at the university spread it. So I'm going to this training, and they're training about this thing that's just like, we get to do what? Right? What? Like, wait a minute. And then I had basic, I went to San Diego State and got my bachelor's degree in psychology, but so I had tampered in some of this, but wait a minute. And anyways, Brad and Jerry, Brad was this very like, I don't know, very, very formal, organized, articulate, but played an instrument. I don't remember if it was ukulele or a band,
I
whatever it
can see
was.
this now.
You see it?
I can
And
see
so
this
then
now.
Jerry it reminds me of my grandmother in every way.
Oh.
And so they train us on the wraparound. They give us this giant folder, like giant folder.
Uh-huh.
It was like
Oh, I remember those
the thick
days.
ones,
Sure,
and it had like
sure,
24 chapters
sure,
of
sure.
here's how you train child
Oh yeah.
welfare. And I remember feeling so overwhelmed when they said
Oh
that.
yeah.
But so we go through this training. At the end of the training, you have to write your own training about wraparound. This was the birth of the
Okay.
superheroes training, right? This was a birth story of
Okay.
heroes and wraparound. But Brad and Jerry at the end, and they're all in. Like they ain't playing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They believe in this stuff so much, and people are still like tiptoeing in the water. And so at the end of the training, they give us a kwong, and I'll tell you what a kwong is. A kwong is like this little toy, you know the little smushy toys that are like prickly that like looks like an animal, but it's like this big. It's plastic. They come in the little quarter machines,
Okay.
right? Anyways, you guys
Yeah.
know what I'm talking about, right? Um, so, anyways, they give us this little blue Kwong, and it's this little character, really this big. And you know what they tell us? They have us do, and I kid you not, first career out of college. Um, they have us sing this little line of mine, holding
Oh.
this Kwong in the air, because Eastman Phil Kwong, where Wraparound started in California, right? That was their little mascot. That was their thing. I still have that Kwong. I should bring it in and show it to you. But the
Oh.
story of Brad and Jerry, they helped,
Yeah.
and they're long retired, and they play their instruments and support their families and kind of just do their own thing now. But they were two people that I don't know we talk about a whole lot, but
Right.
they were monumental, um, at least in my life.
I love that. I love hearing that. Brad and Jerry.
Brad and Jerry, yeah.
That's nice.
And everybody would forget. I thought of ice cream, Brad and Jerry, Ben and Jerry. Anyway, so there's one story I got. Can you think of another one?
Um, well, I remember when I was becoming introduced to it to Dr. Karen Schmuckler. I'm not sure if you know who she was, but she was doing some educational stuff with Wraparound, and she is from born in South Africa, and she works in the doing
Tell me
school
more.
administration in Boston, the Boston area,
Wow.
and and she was doing consulting and training for us, and I was new to the area,
Uh-huh.
and I thought I'm maybe this isn't for me, right?
Okay,
Because
right.
I
Weren't you gonna be a lawyer at one point?
yeah, and I just thought I don't know. And I had to drive like almost 2 hours to work every day, and
Yeah.
I just thought this isn't for me.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Dr. Karen, I don't think I'm going to be able to do this. We went to drove to a home to do what I know now as a strength and cultural discovery. And there was a like a DV incident or something. Well, there's something happening or whatever, and I was doing my thing, and just after the whole thing was going on and processing and doing, um, I just loved the way that she kind of expressed and handled it, and I thought I just like this
Mm-hmm.
because of her accent. I think this is what it is. And maybe it's not just
You
the
were
word,
drawn
right? I
in
was
to
just
her
drawing it.
energy, her
But it was more than
vibrations.
that. It was more than that, right? It was the work. But I just really appreciated uh, the way that things were happening. Different from like normal reacting and judging and not seeing both sides. Like
Mm-hmm.
you're bad. You're good, you're bad.
Mm-hmm.
I need
Mm-hmm.
to have right. It
Mm-hmm.
was let's see what's happening on both ends. I mean, I'm not
Mm-hmm.
discounting whatever's going right, but
Right.
let's make sure every single person is okay. We're not and I like that, right?
Slow it
Right,
down.
the whole family approach, the whole um and that's really who I am,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
The holistic kind of thing. And I thought, all right, I'm gonna come back tomorrow. I'm gonna come back tomorrow and see how this goes.
Mhm. Give it one more day.
Give it one more day.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I would have done that if I didn't have um if it wasn't wraparound, right? If it wasn't
Sure.
wraparound.
Yeah.
So, some of the humble beginnings, but yeah, again, someone that I admire and care about, and she actually did some. I was reading an article that she was writing the other day about something that was sent to us. I'll have to share it with you. Some groundbreaking stuff that they're doing now with
Hmm.
educational things in Massachusetts. So
Yeah.
yeah.
That's great. You took me to two kind of very powerful spirits that influenced me, and I'm thinking right now, I'm like, gosh, a lot of these people are like not working anymore. They're retired, or they're about to, or and I was like, whoa, wait a minute, that's kind of unique. Anyways, one is her name is Nancy Swartz, And Nancy was kind of like the one of the local formal trainers. I forget, Dr. Nancy Schwartz, I believe. And if not, she should be, and it was. I think she. Anyways, um, her her way of looking at things like flexible funding
Mm.
and her way of looking at like uniquely designing culturally specific teams, and just her spunkiness. She had this most curliest hair, and Nancy up there, and talking about ways that they actually help families, like concrete ways. It wasn't necessarily how to do the assessment or how to do any formal instrument. It was like, this is what we did. And Nancy introduced me to probably my greatest mentor, which was Sharon Morrison Prima. And I mean, watch. I like to describe it because you got to understand. She's got long hair down to like she's only like was 5 foot one, four. She was shorter, and she had her long hair and she had the longest fingernails you ever saw in your lifetime. I'm talking. They were long, and the way she spoke so poetic. And she was a very, very like meta high level rap person. And I remember doing a training one time where, because we always believe with training with youth and families in the room,
Right.
right? Invite
I
them,
like that. Yeah. Yeah.
invite them as co-trainers. And we had this one youth, this young man who was really having a hard time, especially because there was one team member that was at the training and they weren't necessarily listening very well. And this kid was really having a hard time in the middle of class.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh gosh, I'm the co-trainer.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't exactly know what to do. I just watched this little lady walk over to this kid and place her hand on his shoulder and say, what do you need right now? Like the most simplest
Mm-hmm.
words in the whole world. Like he was
Mm-hmm.
ready to throw the table, go off in every way. Everybody was scared.
Mm-hmm.
And she walked over and placed her hand and said,
Mm-hmm.
what do you need right now? And he's like, I just need some space. I can't be in here right now. She walked them in the other room. And this is just one simple demonstration of like not just teaching about these ideas, but being present about it. And I think that she lived her life. She used to talk about we did a lot of work in Los Angeles. She trained like all of at one point I think 400 social workers to do wraparound in LA County, and she's talk about the freeways and driving in the traffic, and how she practiced being strength based in the traffic, right? And so when people would cut her off or people would, not be the most friendliest, and she would talk about wishing them well. She would talk about acknowledging their ability to like weave in and out of traffic without killing people. And it's just this like, wow, either this lady's like super duper like on the next level or she's got something. And I mean, for years, I mean, we were partners in training we became the new Brad and Jerry, if you will. Like,
Yeah.
um,
Okay.
and because we used to do training for trainers, and I would see her do this in class. You'd hear somebody about, because sometimes people get personal in class,
Right.
especially when you're in wraparound, because it starts to take, help
Absolutely.
shape your heart.
Sure. Sure.
There'd be times in class where Sharon, I call her Prema now, she would walk up to somebody and say, like, I have something to tell you. And she would tell me, she's like, I'm going to tell that person something, and it might mess up the whole class. I'd be like, what? What do you mean? Because they would have shared something in class that was deep, like their recent passing of someone, or like, something deep in a class.
Yeah.
And she would walk over and she would say something to them. And I swear to goodness, I was always scared that they were going to, what lady? Like, why are you talking? And it was like 5, 10 minutes later on break, they're both in the hallway, like connected. And that spirit never like that influenced the way I show up, right? Um, and I think that it was, anyways, that's a major pioneer. She passed away a few years ago, but that spirit lives on.
Right. And I think that, a lot of people do a lot of really good work. Spirit of what of their legacy
Yeah,
is what carries this tremendous community, right,
yeah,
of practice. And inspires us every day, right? Kind of to keep moving, going. Yeah, it's something. I mean, I'm recently celebrating an anniversary where I am, and I'm getting all these memories that are kind of flooding back, and it's like I can't even believe that I'm here. I'm still doing. I'm still excited to show up every day to work. I'm still happy to be with some of the people that I've been, with. this whole time, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like a family,
Yeah.
right?
Real talk.
Of people, and I'm really grateful for that.
Yeah.
This is what kind of drives me to want to continue and do it and share and be, you know, with others and share these experiences and want to also kind of bring in new people. And I think that's why it's so important to talk about these stories and hope that they inspire is a strong word, but just kind of keep the faith and
Mm-hmm.
the work
Mm-hmm.
going,
Mm-hmm.
um, because it's important work. Um, it can be life changing for people, right? And it's good work.
Yeah. Those pioneers. I think we talk about this idea of history. We've talked about some of the experiences we have with some of those greats, right? Those people that left footprints that go on forever, right? Um, and that history, if I were to just kind of break it down into, because it's hard to articulate because it was like a combustion, right? Like it
Hmm.
happened, a natural process in a lot of communities where people were experiencing the same outcomes, and dealing with some of the same travesties, if you will, from some flaws
Hmm.
in current planning. Um, and so I think about, we mentioned some of these folks. Carl Dennis in the Kaleidoscope in Chicago. We talked about John Vandenberg. There's Pat Miles. There's Wraparound Milwaukee, Wraparound, and we could talk about. So let's take just a minute to kind of put all this together. We talked about these pioneers and leaders and seed. I don't know what you'd call them. What would
Hmm.
you call them?
Well, gardeners.
Gardeners. Well said. And let's talk a little bit about just how the history. Those folks came from, if you will, grassroots implementation
Yeah.
births of Wraparound, which is
Hmm.
kind of where the journey starts. So we to kind of fast forwarded a little bit to our experiences of them, but what were some of the stories you heard about the history and the foundations from those grassroots efforts from of the growth of those Wraparound launches, right? Um, I think about, I've heard the story, and we share it all the time about Alaska Youth Initiative and the team that worked there, and some of the stories about bringing the kiddos that were in out of state care, some of those kids that were in institutions and were, if you will, not
Right.
necessarily think that it was possible for them to come back.
Yeah.
They started bringing them back and they started to meet their needs. They obviously had a lot of learning to do,
Right.
but along that process, they were able to support the healing journey, or minimize some of the trauma exposure. That's one of the stories I'm aware of. Um, what are some of the stories that they used to talk about in the history origins of Wraparound, that they shared?
I mean, I think some of those main ones that you're talking about, that I'm thinking about, and just remembering some of them, it's just kind of fascinating and hearing them, you know, over and over and listening to them, the, the videos or the TED Talks or the one-on-ones with them. It's just, I don't know. It's just, I can't even thinking of one in particular.
I was thinking of uh, Dr. Lenore Bahar and North Carolina and the work done there.
Mhm.
And the story, as I know it, right, was there were kids being sent to
Oh,
out of
well,
state
right.
care,
Yeah.
group homes, residential, and there was some travesties that occurred. And so then there was a shift through class action lawsuit, just like there was in other communities, that shifted this idea of community based planning, right? Community based care, as opposed to institutions to build the services here. And I don't know that a lot of people, like, I didn't know that story until, like, I think year 6 or 7 in my
Got it.
journey.
Yeah.
And so that is a fundamental story that is really important to people understand, that it was out of some loss, a lot of loss
Oh,
in some circumstances,
yeah.
that caused this change. And how quick it is easy is it sometimes for communities to institutionalize kids and or families versus creating those
Well, or
unique
to forget.
or to for say that again.
I to forget.
Yeah,
And if we don't, if we don't know and see, I mean, and repeat some of that stuff,
and
right?
remember. Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, just think, I mean, even thinking about Alaska or the things that have gone, or that West Coast, I think, Washington, they've had
right,
things, I mean, they've been all over,
right.
having them to, I mean, you know, the one with the, the Alaska Youth Initiatives and those ones that they've come, and I love hearing that TED Talk that John does,
Yeah,
his youth,
yeah.
and it brings me to tears sometimes. Every single time I've watched it 100 times, maybe 200.
Maybe more. Um, as you said, John, I thought about another John. My buddy Johnny Ross. So Johnny Ross is a wraparound leader in British Columbia, Canada, in Surrey, BC. Sorry, and there they have a lot of communities that have moved from war-torn countries and that come with a new set of needs and a different set of resources. And so what they were experiencing is this high involvement in some criminal and like gang activity,
Hmm.
right? And so they were using wraparound in the schools to meet the threshold of some of those kids that have been exposed to, some real tough situations and using wraparound to plan those complex needs because it wasn't just about traditional developmental chronological family needs. It was deeper needs, right? And justice and some of those other things. And what they were doing up there was so unique, and it was so cool to get to go into to leave the work that we've done here really. At that time I primarily was in California, and so just to experience a whole nother
Wow.
world and a whole, but using the same process, but with a whole different kind of like objective and scope of work, or seeing some of the ways that wraparound has been used to step people down from prison, right? Like,
Now that is something I have such a huge interest in, and I just really believe that a lot can be done there, and I'm I want to really think about it or do research, or
maybe that's one of our future
I'm telling you
wraparound
right now,
podcasts.
want to do. I just believe it's something that I'm not sure how much has been done
Right,
with that or
right,
where,
right,
but I just think it's a huge need or area,
right.
um, that that can be tapped
And
into.
there, we know that there are cited publications that have demonstrated this work. And I think that's this key is that without these stories
Yeah,
continuing,
yeah.
we can lose them. So we shared about Alaska, we shared about Chicago, I mean, wrap around Milwaukee. Think about the stories I heard about the
Mm,
way that they changed
hmm,
the infrastructure,
hmm,
not
hmm.
just the practice, but the way that
Right,
they
the whole
changed their
infrastructure.
systems
Yeah.
to be able to better engage and plan uniquely and make sure that they have a plethora or network of services that are unique enough to culture and individual needs that we actually apply stuff that works. Well, I think that this is just the beginning of this discussion. Um, is there any more stories you wanted to share?
No, I mean, I just think that I mean, there's some that we could go
Hundreds,
on
probably.
for on and on, but the main thing is just that, um, you know, we're people are doing this work every day, and we want to continue to connect them all over the world, if
Yeah,
we could, right?
yeah,
Wrap around the world. So we want to hear them and find out about them, and continue to grow the practice
yeah. It
in a
makes
way
me
that
think
makes sense to
about,
say.
we're planning on doing some specific to natural supports and
Ooh,
parent and peer leadership podcasts in
yeah,
the future,
yeah.
and we've got some big names coming in. But I was just thinking about one of my mentors, and I wish I would have pointed this out before I said some of these other folks was some of those lived experience parents that had gone through it and experienced it, and now are back working in the system, and are champions. So I'm thinking of one in particular, Melinda Furfuro. She was a parent, hired to be in the system, who had experiences with her children, the whole gamut, right? And her kids were still kids. They still were hers. They were still working, right? So she had her own life stuff going. But my point is that when she walked into a room, and I'd be in a room full of a ton of professionals, and sometimes she was the only parent. But she would walk in that room, and I swear it was like everybody stood up and like saluted her. Not
Mm-mm.
not literally, but it was
Mm.
like that. And there were
For
other
respect,
people.
being respect. Yeah,
Yes, there were
gaining
other
respect.
folks that you could tell got uncomfortable in their chair.
Okay.
And when I, hear late, time later, engaging those folks, they were like, yeah, we knew she was about to bring it.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I guess I want to also just showcase some of these early pioneers with peer lived experience.
That needed
Um,
to do that, and lay the groundwork for what we know today.
yeah,
Right.
because
Yeah.
in fact, all these folks that we've
Well,
outlined would probably say that one of the powerful magics is those
that had to
partnerships.
happen. Sure. I won't get into it today, but we, I can remember going from a professional to being a peer.
Yeah,
I mean
yeah,
that's different than your experience,
yeah,
but I went from a professional to being a peer.
right.
That was quite a journey.
Right, right, right,
Because you know what?
right.
I've never really gone back,
Yeah.
right?
Huh.
Because of that,
Huh.
right? Yeah, our journeys were a little bit different,
Yeah.
but yeah. So yeah, that's a whole nother
I'll talk about
story.
this other guy. I can't, have you heard of Tracy Little?
Oh God.
Come on now. He was one of my mentors. I remember going for
Oh
like the
God.
first time with you at a training. You were like, who is this guy? And anyways, I don't want to talk too much more about us, but we've got some of those stories to share too in the future. I love this idea that we just kind of segued into the pioneers of wraparound leadership through the lens of lived experience.
Yeah.
And I know we got some people getting ready to come on the podcast that are more modern day, innovators, but maybe you know what? Let's think about that. Who we're going to get on here, um, as some of those earlier folks. Gosh,
Yeah.
Anita Mims. I'm thinking of some of the names in California that even now they kind of shake a room. Like even now they walk. You're getting the real
Well, I'm
deal.
gonna tell you, I've been on some recent, national groups and stuff with some peer mentors that, or some peer leaders that shake me in my boots. I'm gonna tell you that right now. So, yeah, let's get them all in here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's the next conversation. Well, Tracy, I know this is the beginning of a series diving into the history and the origins of this wraparound journey. And I think the next step will be we now to hopefully interview some of those folks
Yeah.
and get them on
Yeah.
the show.
Yeah. 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 Definitely. Oh, that's what I want.
All right. Well, thanks you, brother.
Thank
Let's
you.
wrap the world.
I appreciate it.
We'll
Yeah.
see you next time.
All right. Bye.